Hi everyone, this is Mr. Lim from SEP Academy, and I'm here to share with you the differences between H1 and H2 chemistry to help you in your choices for subject combination. Now, one of the most popular combinations is PCME, and between chemistry, a lot of students actually chose H2 chemistry, but do you actually know what you are getting into when you study H2 chemistry and versus a H1 chemistry? Now, first thing first is we discuss what are the differences in the assessment between H1 and H2 chemistry. So now in H2 chemistry, there are 4 papers tested. Paper 1, 2, 3, and 4. Whereas for H1 chemistry, there are only 2 papers tested. So in terms of the weightage, 33% for H1 chemistry is reserved for MCQ, and the rest is for paper 2. And the paper 2 is structured as structured questions as well as free response questions, which is something like an essay question. And however, for your H2 chemistry, you would have a practical component, which is very similar to the O-level chem practical, but something much more, because not only will you have titration, and secondly you have QA, you have a third and a fourth component. I think third component you are very familiar with, experimental planning, and fourth component, it could be either kinetic analysis or, for example, like thermometric analysis, which we talk about in our lessons. So 4 different types of practical skills tested. So I repeat again: number 1, titration, which could either be redox or acid-base titration. Number 2, QA, identifying cations, anions, and gases. And number 3, you have experimental planning again. And number 4, you have the component of kinetic or thermometric analysis. So very much similar to how we have prepared for our O-level. In terms of differences in H1 and H2, there's definitely more weightage. So you will have an additional paper as what we mentioned. So in your paper 3 will be a free response question. So it's something like an essay question. Now, discussing between H1 and H2 chemistry, as mentioned, 30 MCQs in H1 chemistry, which is about 33% weightage. For H2 chemistry, MCQ paper 1 weightage is about 15%. As for paper 2 in H1 chemistry, you have structured questions in section A as well as free response questions in section B, and both will add up to about 67%, which is the rest. However, for H2 chemistry, in your paper 2, you have 30% structured questions. So this is very similar to what you have in, for example, like in your section A for the O-levels. And however, you have paper 3 free response question, which makes up to 35%. And for your paper 4, which is practical paper, it is the same as O-level, which is 20%. Now, how about the assessment objectives? In terms of the assessment, both H1 and H2 will test 3 different things. Number 1, which is your knowledge recall. So for example, like how well do you understand what are acid-base salts? And number 2, applying and evaluating information. So like we talk about a lot about like you draw information from the graphs and from tables to interpret your answer. And number 3 is investigation. Basically, you are making deductions. So in terms for H1 weightage, about 40% of the skill would be tested in knowledge and recall. For example, like defining what acids, blah blah blah, and 60% will be to obtain data and how well do you evaluate information given to you. As for H2 weightage, it is slightly different. You will see that for the first, which is recalling of knowledge, it is about 32%. And for the second skill, which is to interpret data, it is about 48%. We have one more, which is experimental skills and investigation. So you'll realize that H1 chemistry doesn't really test that. So it's just 40%, 60% for the first 2 skills. However, for H2 chemistry, you would actually be tested much more rigorously, which is a 20% about there of the paper for investigation and deductions of skills. So what about H3 chemistry? So now discussing H3 chemistry, what is the difference? Either you take, for example, like university mods, or you will be tasked to do an investigation, or which is like lab-based research. Now, why should you take H3 chemistry? Especially for those who are interested in scholarships, you should be gunning for this because you want something impressive to be upon your A-level certs. Now, a lot of students ask me, if H1 chemistry is very simple, why shouldn't I take H1 chemistry? It is actually because of what you want to do for the university, like what you want to apply at the university level for the courses. Because H2 chemistry is actually a prerequisite for a number of courses. For example, like if you want to take engineering, you need H2 chemistry as a prerequisite. For example, for engineering in Chem Engine as well as environmental engineering at NUS. For faculty of science, you need it for life science, you also need it for food science, and you also need for pharmacy. H2 chemistry is compulsory. Also, in NTU, there's H2 chemistry is also compulsory for some of the engineering courses, especially Chem Engine. Now, the most important thing I think a lot of y'all have asked me, which is medicine. Medicine has a prerequisite of taking 2 science subjects compulsory, H2 level only, no H1, and H2 chemistry is compulsory for application into medicine. So the other one, it doesn't matter. You can take H2 physics, you can take H2 bio. In our previous videos, we actually talked about you can take H2 physics as preference to H2 bio because it does open the door to more opportunities. So take note, H2 bio is not a prerequisite in application for the medicine faculty, but if you like, you can always take it because it's pretty interesting. Now, a question which a lot of y'all ask me is, how do I prepare for H2 chemistry, especially like for those coming from the combined science background? So number one, for combined science, you have not learned metallic bonding, you have not learned macromolecules, for example like diamond and graphite. I think actually you were tested on it, and also on electrolysis. So please read up on electrolysis because it is quite an important and integral part for H2 chemistry. And also organic chemistry, you would have skipped the section on condensation between alcohols and acids, carboxylic acids. So please read up on that. Now, for those who are moving from O-level and IP into H2 chemistry, please take note, please revise your organic chemistry. Now, of course, because of COVID, you were exempted from the entire organic chemistry, so I encourage most of you all to revise on that before the new term starts. So I hope you have been doing that. And one more thing is also for H2 chemistry, like you may have asked me, Mr. Lim, what if I really did not do anything? Okay, don't worry, because the JC lecturers will teach everything again from scratch. So we will be doing number one, mole concept, and after that we'll be doing redox and chem bonding. But when we teach chem bonding, it will be much more difficult because we'll be introducing topics like VSEPR. And also, like for example, like after that we'll move into energy of reactions. So we will teach you not just to calculate the difference between the energy levels, like for example calculation on delta H. We will also be calculating delta H in different forms. What if there's a 2-step, 3-step process? It's otherwise known as Hess law, and we also have Born-Haber cycle. Okay, I should not move into too much details, but in general, you would be tested very rigorously in the H2 chemistry syllabus. That's what I'm trying to say. So now, one important thing for you is you have to consult regularly because it is less spoon feeding for the H2 chemistry on how it is tested. And one more very important thing is a lot of students ask me, like, can I just practice because similar questions would come up for the exams, very much like O-level and IP. Not really. This isn't a piece of good news for you because H2 chemistry doesn't really test repeat questions. H2 chemistry would test a lot of very new innovative questions, and the best way to prepare for it is you keep an open mind. So when you have questions in H2 chemistry while you're doing your paper, quickly consult me, consult my teachers under SAP Academy, and also consult your school teachers as well, because the more you consult, the more you clarify your doubts, then you have a better appreciation. Oh, this is how the concept is working, and for example, to clarify some of the misconceptions you have, and therefore you can like H2 chemistry better, and we actually have a stronger command of it. So this is actually the trick in doing well for H2 chemistry. In essence, what I just want to tell you is take H2 chemistry if you can, because H2 chemistry offers and opens the door for many university courses which you will be interested in. For example, some of you are eyeing for medicine, dentistry, engineering, chem engine, environmental engine, sciences if you like research, life science, food science. Okay, so that's important. Remember, H2 chemistry is a prerequisite for that. And also for those who want to study medicine, remember H2 chemistry plus one more H2 science subject. It could be either physics or bio. Also, if I really struggle with chemistry, for example like B3 level, be prepared. H2 chemistry is going to be really difficult. Like the learning curve is going to be exponential. So the trick to doing well in H2 chemistry is to read and consult regularly. Please don't let your work snowball. So for example, like the first term, the first 3 months we'll be going through mole concept, redox, and atomic structure. So these are the foundation work for the other topics such as electrochemistry, energy, rate of reactions, and organic chemistry in term 3 and term 4 for J1. So please lock in a very good work for your foundation, for example like mole concept and atomic structure. If you fail to do that, you'll find it is harder and harder to catch up, especially in April onwards when we go through and when we teach you very new concepts, for example like Hess law, Born-Haber cycles, and equilibria. So please do your work consistently. Lastly, as what we mentioned, keep an open mind, because H2 chemistry doesn't test a lot of rote learning. It tests much more on application skills. As mentioned, it is about 20 to 30% much more. So you'll see a lot of new different type of molecules which you didn't see before. So even in your past exam questions. So keep an open mind. Apply what you have learned, understand it, and innovate, and apply all of this. I'm very sure you'll do very well. And lastly, don't forget we have very good H2 chemistry lessons offered here at SEP Academy. Come and join us, kind of find out more about how to excel and how to find all the shortcuts for the H2 chemistry syllabus. And I'll see you soon, everyone, and all the best for your O-level results, for those who are receiving the O-level results soon. Take care.